Okay, so let's see how well this works. I haven't actually streamed and recorded at the same time before, but I want to try to save some of these videos. I should have tweaked this a little bit to YouTube after, since Twitch deleted some of my VODs. So what I'm doing today, since I have the Death Scythe that I was building snap fit together, is try to start on panel lining a bit. So basically I'm doing this before putting any of the decals or anything on it, or definitely before doing the gloss coating. So you get a nice like shaded look out of a lot of the panels, and basically it helps it look a little bit more realistic. Um, the extent at which you do it is kind of up to you, because I'll show you kind of on this one that I've already done previously that you can kind of go overboard in places and overdo it, but also like if you really want to, you can shade every single corner on every single panel if you want. So my sound isn't great, and I'm still working on getting my video to like actually show in 1080, but hopefully this is good enough because it's pretty simple. So this is the RG Astray that I did probably 2.5 years ago now or something like that. So I guess I should probably get one that's not washed either. I think I have one that I didn't wash. But as you can see here, like on the hilt or the scabbard of this blade, there's a lot of different shades going on there. It kind of gives it a like cell shaded look almost. Um, so on here, I kind of went overboard and did both sides, which doesn't look the greatest, and it's really thick on this part, not quite even. But this is kind of a real grade, and I think this is the first time that I did it. So if you can see on some of the like knee parts, I got in, how to show that best? Well, there's the hand. I kind of did all the lines in there. And it's not always necessarily to show shading, but it at least gives you like a little bit of difference and separation between what would be plates on like a more complicated kit. Like this piece here, if I can get this right, this piece on the back of the hand is all one piece, but now it looks like there's some depth to it and might have movement. So that's kind of nice. And then let's see, there's little details like this little notch right here on the like thigh area. You can get, it's kind of terrible. I don't know. I could probably show it a little bit better here. No, it's too small. Okay. Well, I especially like how this part turned out on the scabbard, because like you get this like braided effect on this red part. Pretty neat. But yeah, it gives a little bit of separation between the fingers. It's just pretty good overall. But yeah, you can see on the back here of the arm, I probably could have cleaned that up a little bit better. It's a little dark. So the goal is just to try to wash everything but keep it consistent. If it's all going to be dark and look like a comic book, then go for it. But if you're going to have some light, some dark, it might look weird. And then these definitely were kind of a mistake to do, because I wanted a little bit of shading in there, but I couldn't get it out because that's really deep. So I'll kind of go over how to do that. And there's other places that I kind of wish I would have done a little bit darker, or even skipped, and wish I would have gone back and done. So basically the goal, like, yeah, like some of the stuff on here, it's gonna be hard to show, but the goal is to basically do everything before you put anything else on the kit, because this is going to be kind of destructive. I don't think it's on this one, or maybe it is, but I had actually decaled this one before I did the panel wash, and there's a couple decals where the wash has soaked under, kind of on this one on the shoulder, and it makes it stick less. So it'll start to separate. You can kind of see the top part of that. This decal actually splits over the shoulder plate because this moves. And it got under the top side of this decal, so it's darker. So definitely always do this before you do your decals and before you top coat as well, because obviously the top coat goes on top of it. So materials wise, it's actually pretty simple. So I have the first thing you have to decide is what you're going to top coat with. So this is at least the gloss coat that I use. I'm probably going to end up doing this one in matte because I tend to like the matte better, and the gloss is I don't know, isn't my favorite part. I've used gloss for some builds because I don't know, I just thought it might look better for that build, but I tend to use matte, but they're both lacquers. So the lacquer will use a different solvent than an enamel. So whichever, like if you use an enamel spray coat or an acrylic spray coat, which I think are both available. I'm not sure about enamel, but definitely acrylic is. You just want to use either enamel or lacquer, like the one of those three things, or if there's any other options, just don't use the same thing for both your panel lining and your top coat, because then the top coat solvent will make your panel lining run, so that's not good. So I have a lacquer top coat and I have an enamel. This is what is it sold as? It's just sold as enamel paint, I guess. So this is really thick, and you don't want to spread it inside of the panel lines because it'll get all over stuff and be hard to spread. Also, it's really thick, so it'll show up as like a thick black line, and to get those kind of shaded things, you want to mix it a little bit with a thinner. So I'm going to use lighter fluid, just regular Ronson lighter fluid. You can get it at a gas station or a grocery store a lot of the time. So it's a lot less intimidating than it sounds, if I can get this thing open. So there's a really good blog that's really old from like 2012 by this guy named Major Williams, who's kind of big in the scene, and he does like a really quick primer, and it'll basically tell you all the same stuff that I have that I'm going to tell you here, and it used to have pictures, but they seem to be broken or something, I don't know. So basically you want some Q-tips, you want a paintbrush. I actually have two different paintbrushes just in case I want to do something, and then your enamel and your lighter fluid. And you want to do a 60-40 mixture of enamel to lighter fluid. And this is something that you have to kind of feel out. So I guess before I make that, if you didn't see before, this is the Death Scythe finished. So since I'm not going to have a ton of time, I'm probably just going to pop one of the arms off and start with some of these white pieces in the gray a little bit, and go from there. So I should get my drying rack out too. Let me do that before I get too far. So on my main camera, hopefully this will be easy to see. I made a painting drying rack. I just took a box. I put some tape on the top to give the stick something to kind of grab onto and provide her a little resistance. And I ordered a bunch of these clips off of Amazon. It was like $5 for 50 of them or something. Just poked a bunch of holes and put them in there, and it holds up there. So what I'm going to do is, after I'm done with each piece, I'm going to put it on there to dry off. Okay, so I've got one of the arms here. I'm going to separate it as much as I can without like breaking anything. So this piece comes off. I'm not sure if I'm going to be able to get the shoulder out easily, but I'll try. Because there may be, oh, okay, I guess that part comes off that way. Okay, that should be fine. Okay, so I don't really want to deal with the hands because they're all black, and adding a black line to that isn't going to be helpful. And they're kind of missing part of the fingers because they're on the sides. Okay. So looking at this, I kind of really like the contrast between these plates on here and the black. But there's some detail on like these parts of the wings you probably can't even see, but there's a little, there's some ridges there that I might want to try to accent. It's a little bit harder to do those. just because the wash will kind of, when there's not a valley and it's just kind of a hill one-sided, it'll run. So you have to be really careful with it. So like something like this detail on the black side, if I can get a good reflection there, these pits would be really easy to do, but obviously they're black, so you can't really accent them. So I'm going to try a couple of those and see how those look. And then on these gray pieces, I'm probably just going to go around the wrist here, even though that's mostly going to be covered up by this thing. And there's, again, these little joint details. I'm going to see if I can't do those a little bit better. I think if I get some lighter fluid on a paintbrush, I can remove it off the face and just have the inner part highlighted, which will be good. These nubs that like just kind of protrude out always bother me. And I've lined them before, but I don't think I'm gonna this time because it actually kind of ends up looking bad, I think. And then definitely this part right here along the arm just to give some contrast. And then there's a couple of details in the shoulder piece here that I'm going to try to hit. This little notch fits into something else, but I'm at least going to try those. So this should actually probably be pretty quick per arm. Okay, so this is kind of an eyeball thing that you have to figure out. I already have this one open. Should probably wear gloves because this enamel sticks to everything, but if I can get it open because it's dried. Maybe we channel logs really quick. Go a little overkill on this thing. Oh yeah, also I have parchment paper down because I don't want to get enamel on everything. So definitely be aware of how messy this can be. Don't spill anything. Okay. Oh wait, I thought I had opened this one already, but maybe... Oh, maybe that thing just stuck to it. Okay. So, you can smell the acetone. I'm going to pour a little bit in there. And there's already some in the plate, as you can see, that dried. So it'll hopefully dissolve a bit with the... Am I getting this all over my fingers? Yeah, actually, okay, so I have these random plastic gloves that I bought in bulk. I'm a grad student, so I love gloves. I wear them all the time at work. And I happen to have a couple, so this hopefully doesn't seem too weird to people. But I don't want my fingers to be black either. If you're careful, you probably don't need to do this, but there's a bunch of... This little jar has a bunch on the outside, so I don't want to mess with my hands. Okay, this is going to be a pain in the ass. I might just take this little thing out. Okay, stay in there. Okay. Okay, so lighter fluid. Again, like 60-40. I just eyeball it mostly because you're going to keep thinning it out until it is the consistency you want it. You basically just want it to be mostly lighter fluid, honestly. I start off at like 60-40 and then kind of dilute it even further because you can always make it darker, but if you put it on really thick, it's sometimes harder to get off. So the best part about this is that you can just keep, again, removing stuff from your lines until you feel comfortable with it. Yeah, I guess none of these are going to show what I really like about the wash, which is like if you have a really nice deep trough, you can just dab it and it goes all the way through it really quickly. I'll see if I can't get it to do it here, but basically it just uses like capillary induction and pulls it along. So let me do this up here. So you can kind of see this little edge, and I'm just gonna go see how it like kind of bleeds along there. You just need a little bit. Okay, so I'm gonna let it sit there for a second. I'm probably gonna get another dish too, just to have some, well, yeah, just to have some lighter fluid on hand. So I bought these little disposable painter's dishes on Amazon for like, I think I have a pack of 20 of them for like $5. The brushes are just crappy art store brushes, like $1 for a pack of 20. And then I think I got this at Hobby Lobby or Joann Fabrics for like $3 a jar. And then the lighter fluid's like $4. So it's all in all pretty easy to do. Pretty low impact. It's actually way cheaper than the Gundam markers. So I'm going to use, actually I'll use these to, so if you can see there, it's still kind of wet. So I can get most of it off of there. Right? And then now there, all of a sudden there's this definition in this line, which I like, but definitely it's still way too thick. So what I'm going to do, actually I should probably grab the other arm just for comparison. Also, in the future, make sure, so I'm handling all this with enamel on my gloves, and you know, you'll probably end up getting some on your fingers. When you're done, before you top coat, make sure you go over for like little finger smudges and stuff, because I've definitely top coated that on to here before as well. Oh wait, is this missing a piece? Oh no, okay. So yeah, so that kind of gives you the contrast between what it looks like in different light. It's just a little bit different, but I think it makes it pop out, especially at angles like this where you can hardly see it. Just gives you a little bit more edge definition. I think it looks better. Okay, so since this side has a bunch of enamel on it, I'm just gonna, well actually I'll probably use the paintbrush first. Get a little bit of lighter fluid and you just paint over it lightly. And then I'll get the smudges off the flat parts. And then if you want to remove some of the actual enamel that you put in there, you can just keep going after it and eventually get all of it back out if you want to. So I've basically done that just to kind of show you that now there's still a little bit of shade in there. If I got in there with a brush, I could probably remove it, but it's basically all on this inner surface. And there, it's actually providing a lot of contrast on the camera, but I can barely see it when I look at it up close. There's just a little bit in that crack. I want a bit more, so I'm going to go back at it. But it's pretty reversible if you don't end up liking it. Until you top coat. These like kind of one-sided pieces are a little bit harder to do the capillary trick on. Okay. So that one's done. Okay, so this is the hard part that didn't really turn out well the last time I tried to do it. So I'm gonna use very little enamel in this. So in here there's a little, it looks like a screw head. It's kind of hard to see at this low resolution. So for some reason my camera is 1080p, but it's outputting in 480 and I can't reset it for some reason, so I'm still working on that. So yeah, basically I just filled that with the enamel. I'm gonna let it set for a minute so it sits in that crack, but it's probably going to get dark. Oop. And of course I just got some on the tip of this, but not that much. Okay, leave that over there. So for this one, I'm probably gonna have to use this brush to get in there because it's pretty fine. The Q-tip's probably just not gonna fit in there. Okay, yeah, that does work pretty well. So to keep this brush dry, I'm just going to use like a paper towel and keep wiping it off. Also, your reservoir is always going to get dry, so you just keep adding lighter fluid to it as it dries out. Okay. Oh yeah, that looks so much nicer. So where I was having trouble showing you the detail in the other one, now you can kind of see how that pops out a lot more. So a lot of this is just touching up surfaces and making sure you don't have like streaks of ink coming off this way, or enamel, and then checking for like smudges and stuff and just getting rid of them. And you can always just use a clean Q-tip is usually better than trying to use like a paper towel or something rougher, because you can usually just get it up better with a Q-tip. Okay. So there's a little bit, it's going to be hard to show, but there's a little bit of a film, which means that I probably made it a little too thin. Hopefully it gets a little bit better while it dries out. So basically what'll happen is that like if the lighter fluid takes too long to dissolve or dry off, then it'll start to bleed out and it'll dry like that. So one of the things you can do to fight that is kind of leave it angled so that gravity kind of holds some of that in place. I'm going to do this one more time just because it didn't look the best the first time I did it. So I'm going to use some more lighter fluid. I also have canned air, which is really nice to have in this, because if there's any dust or anything on your parts, you definitely want to get rid of it before you start doing this. And it can be helpful if you want to like fast dry your enamel. Okay, I removed a little bit too much there. Again, this is just kind of playing with it until it looks good to you. So you can take something like this and just go really lightly just to dry it a little bit. Okay. Cool. A little bit right there. So basically, as my Q-tips get a little dirty from like doing this dry washing, I just rotate them to do the like bulk removal later. Because like this one, if I were to rub it over there, it's just going to leave a smudge. I don't know. I keep removing too much. I think it's too thin still, so I might have added a little bit too much here. I'm going to let it dry a little bit longer too before I go back at it. I shouldn't use that brush. Oh well, okay. But the little joint turned out really well. So what I want to try next is to kind of do this wrist socket joint. It's going to be tricky because I have to go like all the way around. But if you kind of paint towards the top side of it, it's easy to control. If you try to paint like in between here, so let me get a little bit closer. So there's a ridge that goes all the way around here, and you can't even see it on these sides. If you try to paint in between here, you're going to get on like all the way down there, but if you paint on the top, it kind of rolls down easily usually. See that there, I kind of smudged it all the way through, which isn't going to be easy to get out. I think I dried out. Okay. Make sure this isn't too wet. So you can see I already took that side off. Just a couple swipes will get most of it. And then you can go back later and clean the rest of it up. So this end is a little bit thick, so I'm just going to keep going over it a little bit. And that's kind of what I was looking for. It looks really sharp at low resolution, but I think it looks pretty good to the eye. Okay, so I'm going to use a clean one. Just remove some of that extra enamel. Because the stuff that's on the surface is going to have, it's going to be a mix of enamel and lighter fluid. So you can usually get it up with just a dry Q-tip. If you add more lighter fluid to the situation, it's just going to run more. So these longer lines are definitely a lot more difficult to do cleanly. Especially when they're like, this is probably one of the worst places to have to do it because it's a really long line. It's kind of one-sided, but I don't want it to go like all the way through here. If this was thinner and I could just fill it with enamel, that would be a lot easier, but it's not. And it's never going to be even. Like it's a little bit lighter in the center there. But it'll be mostly covered up, so that's okay. I just wanted to add a little bit of definition. So for the last part of this one, I'm just going to do the other elbow. Again, just kind of fill it. If I can do it without shaking too much. Let it sit for a minute. Can get a little bit off the top. Dry it a little bit. And I don't know, it looks pretty good to me. It's a little hard to see. There we go. Better light. Get a little bit of definition there. For comparison again, that's what the normal one looks like. Okay. Yeah, so I think for each arm, that's about all I want to do on that part. These parts are going to be a little bit more interesting because they're like very white. So I think there's a little ridge here that I kind of want to highlight. So we'll see how that turns out. But I think on this piece, that's about all I want to do. Because most of it is black. It's a little different from a lot of the Gundams I've done in the past that have these like large white segmented armor pieces. Okay. So right there is where that line is. Didn't get it quite all the way out to the edge. And the other nice part about this is if you really want to wait, you can just paint it and then leave it there for like an hour to really dry if you want, and then come back to it later. It, you can remove it even if it's fully dry. Okay. So a little bit of a bleed over here. So now you have kind of this, just a little bit of shadow to give it an edge. On the camera it kind of looks like this top part on this side is a little bit lighter, but there is some there, it's just not catching it. And then for comparison, that side versus that side, you can barely see unless it's in like great lighting. I guess, how is it? That way you can really see it, but that's because my light source is over there. So, yeah. Okay, I'm gonna use my detail brush to get a little bit more off here, and then I'll leave it alone. Oh, I forgot about this part. Crap. These little pieces are really annoying to get in there. Should not have pressed on it like that. Okay. I think it's seated right. There's still a little bit of enamel on the surface, so I'm gonna try to get it off. There we go. It also really helps if you have to remove enamel from the surface to go against the grain of the plastic. It does have a grain, and you will be able to tell when you try to remove it. Like the grain on this one goes lengthwise, so I'm trying to wipe it like the short way. Okay, cool. So let's do this one. A little bit there. So just for my personal style, I try to do a lot of this on where there's a single piece of plastic that kind of represents multiple pieces of armor, and that's what I kind of limit it to. Other people might kind of do this junction right here, but this is two individual pieces of plastic, so I think it's enough contrast for me, but other people might want a line there, so it's kind of up to you on how you do this. I'm gonna try it a little bit. Okay. I wish I had timestamps because I haven't been looking at chat. When did you say that, Sean? What do you want me to build you? Oh, now that one looks better than this side, so I'm probably gonna end up redoing it. And I am pretty rusty at this one, so hopefully over time it'll go quicker between each piece. Because I just finished that one like in 5-10 seconds, and the other ones have been taking me a minute or two. It really doesn't take that long. Okay, so let me reassemble this part. Okay. Sean is trying to interrupt me. So then, yeah, if I come back later and I find some enamel in here, I can just get it off with lighter fluid whenever. Okay, so on here, I got a couple of the same ridges that I'm going to try to hit. I think there's probably enough contrast on this part, even though you can't see it from that far away. But there's a pretty deep side there. But this one is about the same as on the last piece. This one's pretty deep. So yeah, I think I'm just going to try to do a light layer on those two. See how that goes. Okay, and then I'm just gonna go kind of across it and then swipe away at the bottom. Oh, and then I got it all. Yeah, that kind of frayed out on me, so I need a little bit more lighter fluid. Let that dry for a while. I might use the brush on this actually, because it's kind of it didn't work well last time with the Q-tip. This is much harder to do on these like flatter pieces. Yeah, I think these ones have just too much depth. They're not really holding any ink, so May not work too well. Might give up on this one. There's a little bit left in there, but it's probably good actually, just leaving a little bit of shade in there for some contrast. Just gonna make sure it's clean. Okay, clean off this side. It's actually probably better to have like a large pool of lighter fluid in that one, because the thinner it is, the quicker it dries out. More volatile. Okay, so I'll just leave a little bit of shading there. Okay, so that's about all I'm gonna do for now. I'm just probably gonna dry these pieces individually, so I don't have any issues with them. So I'm just gonna grab one of these, find a little piece on the bottom. This is a little tab here that works really well. Ooh. Grab it like that, and then put it in my rack. For the arm, actually it might have been better to leave this. I'm gonna try to grab onto a piece. These don't have that much pressure, but I don't want to like dent anything visibly, and actually grabbing onto that black part's probably the best, because if I do end up like getting teeth marks or something on it, it's not going to be visible. And then this I didn't line at all, so I'm going to leave it over there. And yeah, that's about it. So I'm going to try to do more in the coming days. This is kind of to get myself to start doing it, and then see where to go from there. If you guys have any questions, you can DM me or something. I think I'm on Discord with pretty much everybody that's watching this, so cool.